Today we move on to Plastic Man for the next unpopular opinion character. Over the past couple of days and couple of weeks, I don't really know why, but oddly enough, if I'm talking about DC Comics in my spare time, for some reason, Plastic Man has been coming up quite often. I was on a podcast last week where we even got into a discussion about Plastic Man, and that just practically never happens. Usually when you talk about these characters in public or with other people, it always falls on the Batman or the Supermans of the world. After having him come up in so many of my conversations lately, I thought I had to create an unpopular opinion video for him. It just felt like the perfect timing. Even though he might not be the most popular character in the DC universe, there are definitely a lot of people who really love this character and who have a lot of thoughts about this character. So let's get into some of them. There's two comments I want to start off with here, and the first one is from cecagna, who says he's one of the few DC characters that actually deserves a movie with an origin story. Origin stories are overdone and very familiar territory at this point, but Plastic Man has a fascinating story to tell. Criminals, monks, the whole shebang. And the second one is from Oofy the Troll. He's an underrated gem of a character, and the fact that, to my knowledge, he hasn't been adapted in live action is criminal. So to quickly start with cecagna's side of things about origin stories, I completely agree. I think origin stories are played out, they're boring, and there's really often nothing to bring to the table anymore. At least origin stories within superhero content, because we've all seen it far too much. We all know what's entailed. We all understand the premise of these characters. However, an origin for Plastic Man could definitely be needed. Since he is a side character, there's a lot of people, even comic book fans, not just general audience fans, who don't really know the origin of Plastic Man or even know who Plastic Man is. And because he started off as a criminal, you could even show that in his origin film. And he doesn't need to do anything too heinous. He doesn't need to be a murderer or a killer or anything. You could simply just have it so that he was robbing banks or robbing convenience stores or something like that. Something that is easy to change in a person. And then you could show his rise to becoming a hero. I completely agree with you. Whereas origin stories are overplayed and not necessary for our generation at the moment, I think origin stories for maybe lesser characters like this could be needed and could be a good thing for the character. For the second comment here, not being adapted into live action. Yes, it is a little unfortunate to see. This would be a really cool character on screen. I think not only would have really fascinating scenes, I do also think it would bring in a lot of people who would be fans of this character, because humor can help out with that. And I've been saying this for years, and I'm actually hoping to see this guy's stand-up show in a couple of weeks. Ben Schwartz would be an absolute gem for this character. He would be just perfect. There's no one else. No one else could play this character from who I know. Like, he screams Plastic Man in appearance, in humor, in everything. Maybe the biggest reason Plastic Man has never made a live action appearance, as of yet, of course, is mainly because the CGI and special effects, I think, would be a lot of money for this character. Yes, we're living in a world where, for some reason, movies are having $350 million budgets, so if they could get away with a price like that for Plastic Man, I mean, why not? But it would definitely not make its money back. It would be a loss of money. It's definitely doable, but right now, maybe it's something that needs to wait for the right time. If the DCU ends up being really good and happens to carry on, well, then you can bring him into that. LBSQ says, hot take, he should be a part of the Batman mythos to show that Batman's way of thinking can work, since he was a criminal and changed because of Batman. Yeah, I think that's a fair point, and I think that's a solid idea. And considering too, I made a video about a week ago about should superheroes kill, and I entered this entire discussion about whose characters' moral choices are the best. And of course, Batman being someone we know who does not kill, but throughout history has changed his approach to that and has actually killed in different iterations. Batman convincing Plastic Man to become a hero, to ignore the side of evil, that's his way of being able to say, hey, in a way, my redemption, my code does work. I do think there is still a lot of context to look into that, but that's more of a Batman thing than a Plastic Man thing. Mr. Man, he's a more interesting character than most Justice League members and should be among the main 7. He is definitely one of the most interesting characters that I think DC Comics could potentially give you. He's not just your typical super strength, flight-based character, super speed, intelligent-based character. He does have something unique to him. Even if you want to connect him to a stretchy-based character like a Mr. Fantastic or an Elongated Man, even though he can emulate those powers and those maneuvers, his power base is even more powerful than what they can do. When you look at different comic book continuities, different eras of DC cartoons or animation, they always try to do something with the Justice League or with certain characters to make them stand out a bit more and be a little bit different. When I grew up with the DCAU, I grew up with Martian Manhunter being part of that main 7 along with Hawkgirl. In comic books, it has always heavily been Aquaman part of the main 7. When you go to New 52, they shot in Cyborg part of the main 7. I think it would be really interesting if maybe in the next continuity of DC Comics, or maybe a string of DC animated movies that maybe they do in the future, I don't know, I'm just coming up with an idea here, but Plastic Man would be a member of the main 7. That is what always gets characters to be a lot more interesting than they have been before. Now, I'm not saying Cyborg is one of the most popular characters in the DC universe, based off of what you can see from his history in the New 52. If he was not in the New 52, I don't think there would be people who like Cyborg maybe the way they do today. I don't know if you would have seen Cyborg in Doom Patrol. I don't know if you would have seen Cyborg in Zack Snyder's Justice League. Maybe he would have went with a different character. Always involving a character in the Justice League, it's bound to make that character a lot more popular, and I think Plastic Man could really benefit from that because he would, no matter what, become more popular at the very least during the time of inserting him in the Justice League. Sidekick. Plastic Man is better than Elongated Man. I mean, you're not going to get any arguments from me here. I could completely care less about Elongated Man. I have no interest in that character at all. He's one of the very few DC characters that, for me, if I was interested in a character like that, I would rather just read Mr. Fantastic and the Fantastic Four. That podcast I was on last week where we got into this conversation, and for average viewers such as themselves, they completely bypassed Elongated Man and went right back to Plastic Man, because Plastic Man looks interesting. Not just powers and ability set, but even his costume. Elongated Man, in my opinion, is boring. And once again, yes, you could sit here and argue, oh, you know, they're one and the same. They're very similar. It's like, okay, there are similar things about them. But more than that, I think Plastic Man just has much more of a personality. I think he's a lot more unhinged. The humor obviously helps if you like that type of stuff with your superheroes. And more than just elasticity, he has a metamorphosis. He can form into whatever he wants. The fact that he now has the properties of plastic, I think he's even more or less immortal. I think there's just a lot more going for him than someone like Elongated Man. And Elongated Man is unfortunately going to be grouped into that situation where he's always going to be beat out by Mr. Fantastic. I don't know if there's a way for him to get out of that spotlight that Mr. Fantastic holds. At least with Plastic Man, there is ways for him to get out of that. Steven Cisneros. Since Plastic Man can shapeshift into anyone or anything, I'd love to see him turn into some kind of giant robot or kaiju of sorts, in like a comic page or something made by DeviantArt. That's the beauty of Plastic Man. Your creativity, your mind gets to run with the possibilities of which this character is capable of doing things. It's the same thing with Green Lanterns. One of the best things to visualize is the things they're going to be able to do with their rings. With Plastic Man, it's the same thing, except it's what is he doing with his body, per se. Once again, a couple weeks ago, I did a video about one of the funniest moments I've ever seen in DC. And in this crossover issue of Justice League vs. Predator, Plastic Man literally forms himself into a jet to fly around and have a dogfight with other Predator jets. Like, who would have ever thought of an idea like that? So why not have Plastic Man turn into some Godzilla-type creature and breathe fiery plastic all over the place? He is a character that if you want him to do some epic or goofy stuff, you can do that with him. But I also think he is a character that if you want him to be, honestly, a little edgier, a little darker, you could do it with the character as well. He could do some crazy things and some nasty things. Comic fan, I will never understand why they decided to try and make Harley Quinn into DC's Deadpool when they could have just promoted Plastic Man to be the comedic superhero. Sure, their comedic styles are different, but they're both fairly comical and have an element of randomness to them. He's black and red, just like Deadpool. That's a fair point, and I do think there are a lot of people who don't really like that. That's the mantle Harley Quinn has, the Deadpool of the DC universe. Personally, for me, I don't think DC needs a character like that in any way. That's mainly me, though, not loving Deadpool. I think he's an alright character, but I don't think he's anything fantastic by any means. If we do need to have a DC Deadpool, he would probably be a really good fit. Like you say, there's a lot of similarities, the comedic timing and humor they both have, the suits mainly. But Plastic Man does look like the type of character who could 100% break the fourth wall. He does look like he would at any point in time in a comic book panel look directly at you and make some sort of joke or comment that he knows he is a comic book character. He does look like he would have interactions with characters and all of a sudden he starts talking to the audience and everyone else is like, what the hell are you doing? Who are you talking to? So yeah, he would probably be a far better fit than Harley Quinn. Zekrel. My hot take might sound a bit stupid, but I think Plastic Man would work for a one-off Elseworlds-style horror story. Think about it. He used to be a criminal and turned to a heroic life after being given a second chance. But what if he was never given that second chance? What if he was sent away to a prison laboratory to be experimented, tortured, and ended up becoming an elastic evil villain? Imagine him wrapping himself around a hero or civilian and suffocating them to death. He could also blend in to be somebody's clothes and sneak inside a top secret building while being warned by them. I don't think that's stupid at all, and that's the beauty about Elseworlds is you can just do whatever you want as long as it's a good story. I'm all in for it. I do find them to be better than the canon continuity anyways. This character can be extremely dangerous and even gruesome if he really wanted to. There are some things that would be absolutely brutal that he could do. Imagine for a moment someone needs to take a pill and he formed himself into that pill. They chug it down with a glass of water. He sits in their stomach for a little while and then just grows and implodes them. Like, that's wild. And he could do that if he wasn't a hero. He's so seamless with his actions. That's what also makes him very dangerous. And like I said, the creativity he has to be able to form into whatever he might want, any matter of speaking, it would also add this ability to his intelligence, in all honesty, to be able how to figure out how to get in and out of situations, how to defeat other people, instead of just using your typical super strength and power. If I can't beat him through my punches, I'll beat him through my kicks. I'll punch him through a wall. He has the ability to think outside of the box, literally. So for my unpopular opinion of Plastic Man, and I have to be completely honest with you, I don't even know why. I have no idea why I think this would be interesting for the character. I don't even know what the story would be, but it would take place in the future, like hundreds, thousands of years. Like you could even do the 31st century if you want and use the Legion of Superheroes over there if you wish. But it doesn't matter. Far into the future. Plastic Man is technically supposed to be immortal. I would have Plastic Man find a way to leave Earth and venture out somewhere into the universe. And I would have him inflate himself. But somehow he manages to obtain so much mass, he ends up getting caught by the gravity of a star. He starts orbiting that star. And from a distance, when you look at this ball, this matter going around the sun, it looks like a planet. When you get closer, you realize it's just this massively rounded plastic man that's literally been orbiting this star for hundreds, thousands of years. And somehow there's even some sort of ecosystem that's growing on this Plastic Man planet. And if you were to find a way to get inside of the core of this planet, all you would see is all of Plastic Man's body parts and insides just overgrown, his organs like his heart, lungs, intestines. It's just huge. And like I said, I don't necessarily have a story on why that would even happen. I just think it would be so cool to see Plastic Man test his abilities in a way that has never been tested before. I'm sure there is a crazy enough story you could tell where that could happen. But there you go, everyone. Unpopular opinions on the character of Plastic Man. Now, as per usual, thank you to everyone for commenting. It's greatly appreciated. Leave your comments below on Plastic Man if you did not get the chance to do so in the original community post. Also, leave some comments on some other characters you'd like for me to do unpopular opinions on. I have a list growing, and whoever you place, I will add to the list. That is all for this video, everyone. I hope you guys all enjoyed it, and until next time, I will talk to you all very soon.